Welcome in, everybody. Tuesday night Texas football live stream on the On Texas Football channel. Aaron Hogan, Rod Babers, CJ Vogel, and you with your questions, comments, and super chats for the next hour. Plus, as we talk Texas football, the number one team in the country on this Tuesday night. First time in 16 years, obviously. We'll get you the latest on Quinn Ewers' health and maybe timeline to return. Also, we'll have a little debate on what the wisest course of action is on that situation with Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning with Louisiana Monroe this weekend, Mississippi State the following. Then, of course, a bye week and Oklahoma in about 26 days from today. And we look forward to talking to you about it and all the goings on. CJ's got some recruiting news in the recruiting front. And there's a great one right there. Good evening from beautiful Austin Sunset. Yeah, I was just looking at it before I closed my blind out here west out over Onion Creek Golf Course here in South Austin. Rod is in South Austin. CJ in South Austin. We're ready to roll. Guys, how we doing?
We're good, creeping up on the weekend. Can't wait. 1 week closer to watching the number one team in the country play some football. I don't know how it gets more exciting than that.
Yeah, we'll get into it. Obviously, okay to maybe get in some of the Oklahoma-Tennessee game a little bit too. That might be fun. Because that game is coming fast. It doesn't feel good about Oklahoma in that matchup with the Volunteers rolling in the Josh Heupel Bowl, as they're calling it in Norman. We'll have a little bit of conversation with that because the Longhorns, obviously, third opponent from now will be those Oklahoma Sooners after they deal with the Warhawks and the Bulldogs of Mississippi State. But Quinn, CJ, what's the latest on Quinn Ewers? I know, obviously, it's a questionable thing according to Sark. I would say better safe than sorry, or be cautious. I know, CJ, you have a baseball background as I do. I mean, it's one of those in oblique. That's just one of those you feel good, and then all of a sudden it pops again. You don't want to be having this thing linger long into the season. You'd rather take the time to make sure it fully heals before you stress it too much.
Yeah, it is one of those weird things where any certain specific sharp movement can, really rise the intensity of how much it hurts. And I think that's exactly what happened to Quinn on Saturday against UTSA. I was told it was perhaps something that he came into the game with, maybe a little bit of a lingering issue from, I don't know if it was the Michigan game or prior to that, but apparently it was something that Quinn had been dealing with just a little bit. It obviously affected him enough to go down in the manner that he did and miss the duration of the game. Sarkisian said he was questionable for Saturday. I believe that's going to be more leaning towards doubtful. I think it's probably a 9% chance that we see Arch Manning starting on Saturday, maybe even higher than 90%. Again, there's just no need to rush him back at this point in the season, especially when you look ahead 3 and 4 weeks from now at who's on the schedule and where Texas will need Quinn Ewers to be healthy for. That's, of course, Oklahoma, in Dallas, and Georgia at home the weekend following that. So Ewers was at practice today. He was in shorts and a T-shirt. He did throw to about 10 to 15 yards just to warm up, just to feel out the motion, feel how his body was reacting to the throwing. Nothing too significant, but we'll see and hear from Sarkisian on Thursday when he meets with the media one more time prior to the ULM game. Again, I'm expecting Arch Manning to be your starting quarterback for that game. And with the way that he performed against UTSA, I don't think you'll see any limitations with the Texas offense, especially in the explosivity department, in which there's a lot of fireworks on last Saturday night. So that's the latest on Quinn. Again, waiting to hear and see what the rest of the week entails for him recovery-wise. But at this time, it's leaning more and more towards seeing number 16 at quarterback for Texas this Saturday night.
Rod, and you battled injuries in your time. It's not just the ability to play on Saturday. You got to be able to rip it and practice on it during the week, which, that's the other part, that if he's not getting the practice reps leading into the game and even in the next week, if he's not getting those, full reps and you don't want him to turn it loose, you got to be careful with that too. If your backup quarterback is capable in getting those first team reps, it's not just about playing on Saturday.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's not, you can be ready for the game, but you got to be ready for Tuesday, right? You got to be ready for the basic install that week and putting on the pads. So I think for Quinn, if I were Sark, I would err on the side of caution and try to make sure he's 100%, as close to fully recovered as we can get. Now, because we know that probably is not going to happen in terms of him being fully recovered. At one point, it's going to be about pain tolerance and pain management for him. But you'd like it go to being from him being injured to being hurt, because everybody's hurt. Everybody plays hurt. All right. But right now he's injured. If you're injured, you just can't, obviously you can't help your team. And I think Arch is a better option when he's injured like this. You want to give him as much time to recover. So the ULM, I mean, I would even consider potentially the Mississippi State game if I were Sark and examine it. Just consider it. It should be on the table as a possible option that, hey, man, Arch might have to play in that Mississippi State game too, just to make sure that you give Quinn as much of a stretch to recover as possible, because this is it. There are no more stretches for him to recover. He re-aggravates this thing really badly sometime during the season, and there's not going to be this much time to recover. He's either going to be out or he's going to have to fight through a hell of a lot of pain to play, and that may affect his effectiveness at the quarterback position. So I would consider leaving him out as long as you possibly can for him to get fully recovered. This is the only stretch where you have that luxury.
Yeah. And good luxury, but also, CJ, maybe even a benefit for Arch Manning to get this quality time for, as Rod said, if something does happen during one of the more critical stretches of the year, Arch has this experience to lean on at that moment, and that can only be a good thing to the ceiling of this football team.
Yeah, not only this year, but you start looking ahead to 2025 and maybe even 2026 when it comes to Arch Manning. This is great for him. You want to see him get these reps. You want to see Trey Owens get his feet wet as well. And whether it be mop-up duty or not, you can never have enough experience at the quarterback position. So that's a really positive sign if you want to look at, this Quinn injury with the glass half full, is that, hey, your quarterbacks are getting reps, they're getting experience, running the offense, getting the plays in front of 100,000 people. That's exciting. That's good. And, of course, for a Quinn, you don't want to see Quinn hurt, right? But if there was a time in the schedule in which an injury were to occur for Quinn, it would be right now, because you're playing perhaps the two least competitive teams on your entire roster, and that's ULM and that's Mississippi State, who got blown out by Toledo by 23 at home. So that's, of course, again, the more optimistic side of this. Of course, then you also have the bye week leading into Oklahoma. So you have 3 full weeks to get Quinn completely healthy and back to work. One thing else, I've seen some comments about the hand, the thumb for Quinn. I'm told that's not an issue. It wasn't really an issue on Saturday. I don't think it really had much of an impact on the interception either. I know that ball kind of sailed. It looks kind of odd. And, of course, with Quinn high-fiving teammates with his left hand,
yep,
it looked weird. The optics certainly kind of gave off the idea that was going to be a much bigger deal. I don't believe it's going to be a lingering issue. I don't believe it's a factor at all for Quinn's health and at all. He was fine in the game, 14 of 16. And then I was told today, of course, that thumb, hand, whatever it might be, not something that the staff is overly worried about at the moment.
Yeah, well, just a bad throw. And it happens. He hasn't had many so far in 2023 or 2024. It's kind of like that touchdown run they gave up on the defensive side. Sometimes you take a half step the wrong way, miss a gap, and you do that as little as this team has done so far. As far as big mistakes like that, you'll take it.
That was mullet Quinn. That was mullet Quinn.
Mullet Quinn.
A little sloppy. You know what I mean? That's all right.
Bad footwork. Ball. There's a little sailing on him. Trey Wisner was open on the play. Rod, give me your initial Tuesday thoughts on a game plan for Arch. Is it different, same, more legs, or Sark has always said we won't major in the run game with our quarterback, but that's available. What do you see for a game plan for him?
Of course, he can use his legs. I think it'll be with moving the pocket, right? Designed rollouts. Matter of fact, the first completion, and we've been talking about this because we brought it up on the post game. First completion for Arch in his last 3 appearances has been a form of a design rollout and a flood concept of some kind. So I think they're going to move the pocket a little bit with him because he's really good on the move and comfortable on the move. But I don't know if they're going to have quarterback run game in there. If he does, it'll be him just, improvising on his own. I bet Sark will somewhat discourage it because of the quarterback situation. We'll probably be like, hey, you know what? Nah, I'd rather you just hand that off. That's actually, even though it is a zone read, you can keep it. We want you to just hand it off. I don't know if you'll have more of those dynamic runs from them, but I think the offense, it's possible you could have more deep balls. I mean, they threw some deep balls in there early with Arch, and I was a little surprised they opened it up. I mean, there were 3 deep balls that I can remember. 2 of them he connected on in that game. One of them when they were rolling the pocket to Ryan Wingo. And I guess if I was out there at Ryan Wingo, I'd just throw him the ball too. And that's another thing. You're going to have more targets to Ryan Wingo and to Jonte Cook, because those, and CJ brought it up, right? Those are kind of 2 of his favorite targets. He's kind of grown up now in that system, throwing to those guys because they've been on the second team with him in practice. So I think that's something. The pre-snap motions and shifts, I noticed that there was a drop in pre-snap motions and shifts under with Arch at the helm, which makes sense. You don't want to worry about a lot of the pre-snap stuff and the pre-snap, direction, because you might have an opportunity for more pre-snap penalties, especially if he didn't have the week of practice. Now, with a week of practice, you'll probably still get relatively high rates. We'll see if we get to Sark's average or above average. So that's something also to watch. Not as much of the pre-snap eye candy. Also, I think you'll see the same amount of screens, RPOs, and play action pass. Those are just those are signatures, conceptual signatures of Sark's offense, and that was actually pretty. That actually was something that consistently crossed over from Quinn to Arch. One thing to watch is pass rate, though. When Quinn was in there, you guys remember the first 9 plays were pass plays. They didn't run the ball. It's like the 10th play of the game. The pass rate with Quinn in there was close to 70%. I mean, and I've talked about it. You got to give this offense to Quinn. Get the passing game is what you should lead with. That should be your identity. I wonder with Arch if the pass rates, which have been at least early down pass rates, have been close to 60% early on. Colorado State, even Michigan. Will that still be the case with Arch? Or will they try to balance it more with the running game? And if you do balance with the run game, you better make sure you got the bodies in the run game to do it, because your running back position right now is dealt with a lot of injuries.
Well, update us on that too, CJ. Yes, Jaden Blue, ankle he suffered there in the Michigan game, late scratch for the game on Saturday. Or any update on that, Trey Wisner, on where we stand with the bodies in the running back room?
Yeah, not as clear with Jaden Blue. Of course, the Texas staff held him out of that game on Saturday. They believe that he could not go. If that game was a Georgia or Texas A&M or an Oklahoma, I think you would have seen Jaden Blue on the field. But again, kind of in that sweet spot of the schedule where you don't have to force anything if guys are dinged up or lingering with injuries. We also saw Jelani McDonald sidelined as well. I believe Trey Wisner is also dealing with some sort of lower body injury as well. He did not make it all the way through that UTSA game. So a bit of a thinner room for a room that's already pretty thin. We saw a lot of run for Ryan Niblett in that game. Jarrett Gibson got a lot of touches. So I think those are going to be your 2 focal points against ULM this weekend. I'll have to check, of course, to see what their statuses will be. I think Trey Wisner will be all right. I think Jaden Blue will try to play, but I don't know for certain what their status will be for this game just yet. Of course, just 2.5 days removed from that game on Saturday. I think they'd like to get them, into Wednesday and into Thursday before making an official decision on what their availability will be for this game coming up on Saturday night.
Also, to that point, CJ, about the running game, Isaiah Bond, right? He was fantastic versus UTSA. His 2 big plays were essentially those bubble screens, and you talked about them on your Twitter account. Sorry, X account. Sound like an old man, but yeah, essentially those guys. Those are extensions of the run game. That also is going to be now an even bigger part of the offense, with question marks about depth at running back and with guys being nicked up at running back. That's just a long handoff. Both 64% of Isaiah Bond's receiving yards in that game versus UTSA, and he was over 100 yards, were on throws behind the line of scrimmage. And there's certain guys, like I don't know if Matthew Golden, DeAndre Moore had that ability with the ball in their hands. Not everybody has the ability to go from 0 to 60. He was tracked by Real Analytics as the fastest ball carrier in college football this past week, right? I think they had him at 22.1 miles per year. They had him at 22.1 miles per hour. They were the fastest player in college football in week 3, right? So if you can get him on that edge, and he had talked about DeAndre Moore and Matthew Golden being his best blockers on the edge, on the perimeter as wide receivers, like a Jay Witt was, if they can make that kind of difference and you can just get him the football really quickly out there on the edge, that for Sark, that might as well be, I'd say, a long handoff. It might as well be an extension of the running game. So watch the screen game. maybe even for a Silas Bowden, because I think he's really good with the ball in his hands. Your wide receivers that have that yak ability, you might want to get them in those opportunities. And I think Sark will do more of that we saw from the UTSA. Worked so well.
Yeah, Rod, I definitely agree, especially when you start looking at the SEC. I was looking at it today. The average distance of target for Quinn Ewers in comparison to other SEC quarterbacks, and because the running game is as thin as it is, and because you have as many weapons at the wide receiver spot, those quick throws, those extended handoffs, if you will, are more, they're going to be bigger focal points of this Texas offense. Quinn actually has the shortest average distance of target so far this year, 6.2 yards per attempt. Wow. That's a yard and a half shorter than second place. There are guys that in the SEC, and they've not had much success, and I think it's more due to the philosophy of their offensive schemes, that are averaging 13 and 14 yards per attempt down the field, and that's not viable. And you look at where those teams are right now, well, you'll see some Florida names up there. You'll see some Auburn names up there. Some teams in which their offenses aren't clicking as well as you would like them to be at this time. Of course, Texas, I don't think folks are going to be complaining about, scoring 52 and then 56 and 31 on the road against Michigan. That's a good offensive output so far this year. And to get the ball out to your guys and let them work after the catch, that's the recipe right now that Texas is operating under, and it's working. So we'll see if that number rises at all for Arch. Of course, I do believe that they're going to keep those bubbles, those quick screens, those missiles in this playbook, especially against a ULM and a Mississippi State, games in which you can out-athlete those guys on the perimeter, especially when you have a Matthew Golden and DeAndre Moore out there blocking there too. But 6.2 yards per attempt so far, very short for Quinn Ewers so far this year.
Great stat. I didn't even realize that.
That is interesting. And I just don't wonder, having, we know Sark likes to chuck it. I wonder if they want that on film for somebody like Georgia to try to compress that line and maybe bang them with some big balls that really haven't done much. Yeah. I mean, that's obviously the kind of game you would save that for if you feel like you can, beat these teams, and even Oklahoma with their struggle is on offense. So you can be a little more cautious and feel like you're going to score points. But as you said, Rod, those are extensions of the run game. Gosh, Isaiah Bond on that swing route, I mean, he hit the corner like a track. He was coming around on the 4x1. He was hitting that corner.
Yeah.
Man. And he was picking up speed, and it was pretty to watch. That guy can go for sure. They got speed without a doubt. So Longhorns in a good spot, number 1 in the country. They've got trying to work their quarterback back in fully without rushing him back, and get Arch Manning valuable playing time while resting up some of these running backs who got some dings. Longhorns are a 45-point favorite right now, even with a backup quarterback in the game, or potentially backup. Now, remember, guys, by next Wednesday, we'll actually have injury reports from the SEC. Every SEC game will have an injury report. So tomorrow we'll get one for Tennessee and Oklahoma. We'll actually get the injury list, which is now required of SEC teams, which is kind of cool. I think my favorite quote, Rod, from the post game after the win, and obviously all the hype about Arch Manning and moving to number 1, was Jake Majors. He was asked about, what you think of Arch coming in and playing so well. And I thought his quote about, that's what we as the leaders of the team expect, that our backups need to prepare like starters. And whether it's Arch or anybody else, when they come on that field, there's a standard that we hold them to. I thought that was really strong from a guy that started 45, 46 games. He's one of those core leaders. If the team and the players on the team are policing the younger guys to make sure they're putting their time in during the week to prepare like a starter, that's where some special things can happen, big picture.
Yeah, and they see it during the week, right? I mean, the way Sark conducts his practice, they get to go up against those guys, and they still make plays, and the roster is starting to get stacked to the point where, you're playing against some elite, practicing against, I should say, against elite competition, and probably won't play against competition that's as good as what you practice against until you play maybe a Michigan, Oklahoma, Georgia, the A&Ms of the world. Other than that, I mean, that's how you're stacking this roster. And that to me is when you have NFL guys going up against NFL guys, a guy like Arch Manning making plays in practice against, high caliber elite players, that, and with elite players too, that gives him confidence going to the game. That's why he's confident that, I'll wait on Ryan Wingo to clear out on that play, because I've seen it in practice and he'll get open. I know he will. I just got to lay it up for him, and he'll make the contested catch because I've seen him do it in practice against elite guys, against Jahdae Barron and against Malik Muhammad. So I know he'll do it. So it's that belief, right? Because football is a sport you practice more than you play. So you got to get confirmation of it at practice. And that's where you develop the trust. And that's why all the guys, they had that expectation for him. They're like, no, man, we've seen you do it in practice. We've seen you do it against us. So go out there and perform. And he was extraordinary out there. It was unbelievable. And I think that's what's happening in his roster, right? You're having guys like, and I remember when this happened at Texas when I was there, around 2000, somewhere around there. We started in 2001. We started winning 11 games, and we had good players. We had guys that were going to play in the NFL and, some of the best players in the country. And yet the guys we were bringing in, they were youngsters. Their ceilings were higher than ours, and they were on an accelerated rate of development. They were already like just as good, if not better. They were prodigies, right? And we brought in like a Derek Johnson, like a Nathan Basher. And I thought to myself, damn, like I'm playing with NFL players. I'm an NFL player. These guys got higher ceilings than I do. And they're already pretty damn good as freshmen. They're already looking like they're going to surpass us pretty damn quick. And we started bringing in talent like that. Roy Williams, bringing in Michael Huff. We started bringing in these caliber players, Blaylock later, and then VY later. And I started to witness it. And I witnessed what Longhorn fans and players are witnessing now with Colin Simmons and Ryan Wingo. And going, okay, that guy's going to not only play on Sundays, that guy might be a first-round pick. And he's just a baby, but he's already out there making noise. He already may be one of our best players, and he just got here. Imagine what his ceiling is. You're starting to. That's where we are now. You got a Roy Williams and Ryan Wingo, right? You started bringing in those kind of Derek Johnson. You got a Colin Simmons and that kind of. At least he got that kind of ceiling. That Anthony Hill, maybe one of those kind of players, but from last year, you're starting to see the young guys look as good, if not better, than the older guys, or at least flash a higher ceiling than them. That's why their sustainability. That's how Longhorn fans recognize they're on the verge of something. This is just the beginning of it.
100%. Yeah. And I want your thoughts on Ryan Wingo, Rod, because I don't know, we've seen unicorns, and then we see this guy who's 8 touches and 30 yards a touch, and you talk about ball hawks on defense and guys who make splash plays on your side of the ball. Man, this guy is just a big play waiting to happen. It's amazing to watch. I want your thoughts on how you continue to develop him and make sure he is scaring defensive coordinators leading into every game. Let me tell you about Mark Saunders. We talk about being comfortable, being confident that your stuff is taken care of. That's what you want. It's Texas O-line and their quarterbacks. Well, that's what Mark Saunders is all about, and his team at Allstate there. If you need a great insurance company and you want to work with someone who is a Longhorn graduate and been doing it for 35 years, Texas alum Mark Saunders is your call every time. If you're not actually sure when you put your head on the pillow at night about whether everything is covered, right? Your home, your car, your boat, motorcycles, RVs, ATVs, anything you've got, they need to all be covered. Mark Saunders will make sure it is, and they are. And if you're looking for someone local, especially in Austin, Round Rock, that Williamson County area, give the Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders office a call tomorrow, 512-218-8571. That's 218-8571. Mark Saunders, 35 years of experience. He's a lifetime Longhorn and huge fan, ready to talk Longhorn football with you and get you covered with Allstate and Mark Saunders, 218-8571. Rod, tell me about Ryan Wingo and how that guy continues to become that splash player and be a factor in the biggest games of the Longhorn season down the road.
I mean, he's your most explosive wide receiver on offense. I mean, I know it's crazy to say because you got Isaiah Bond there, but in terms of just explosive plays, and we've talked about this. The guy's averaging over 31 yards per touch right now. That is just freaky. He's only got 8 touches, but I would believe out of his 8 touches, only one of those was not an explosive play. Like only one of his 8 touches so far. I think it was a target for like 9 yards or something like that. This dude is next level freaky because he has a combination of skills. Usually when I'm defending a wide receiver, I got to defend, 1 or 2 elite traits. I don't got to, with Xavier Worthy, right? He's small, he's slight, but I got to defend that world-class speed, right? I got to defend his world-class agility, his change, acceleration, deceleration. I think for him, that's also next level. But for Xavier Worthy, I'm just trying to get my hands on him. I never want to let him get to full speed. Great tweet there by CJ. Yeah, look at that, 31.5 yards per touch. But he doesn't have the size, really. he doesn't have a lot of great contested catch ability. He's not necessarily a guy that could boss hog me off the line of scrimmage and Debo me, big body me off the line of scrimmage. He can't box me out if he needed to. Ryan Wingo can do all those things. He can beat me with the speed. He can bully me at the line of scrimmage because he's got size. He, can make the contested catches. We've already seen that. His yak ability is very underrated when he gets the ball in his hands. That's just, like I said, he's just raw too, because he's not really running routes right now. He's not refined routes. He's executing routes, but man, once he gets 2 or 3 years into this thing and then he becomes an elite route runner, it's going to be scary.
Agreed. CJ, your thoughts? And obviously now guys this receiver core is, we talked about all off season of how they're going to distribute the touches. And I think finally we saw like Jonte Cook and DeAndre Moore finally got some love a little bit and got their flowers this past weekend. I know Sark's cognizant of it because he understands the receiver position. He's been a quarterback, but man, it's a embarrassment of riches out there. And you got to find a way to continue to make sure Ryan Wingo has several plays a game because he's that dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing with Wingo that's been so impressive with me, you could talk about the big plays down the field. It's body control. The first catch that he had this year, it was a defender draped all over his back, and he shielded him with the body, and he was able to make the catch out to his right side with the defender on his left and came down with a nice 12-yard gain for a first down. We saw a little bit of that as well on the big completion for March Manning when he was rolling out to his left, and you see the 36-yard completion. The ball looks like it was in perfect form, right? It was right in the breadbasket right out in front of him. It was a good throw. More so than that, it was the adjustment by Wingo on the fly to slow down his body, keep the man on the opposite side of the ball, and shield his body shield the ball with his body from the defender. So that it's subtle maturity like that in his routes that kind of stand out to me. So that's why you'll continue to see him be trusted by Steve Sarkisian to get targets when he's on the field. But yeah, you look at some of these numbers right now. Matthew's pulled them up. The amount of guys that have an equal look at receptions, right? You got Isaiah Bond up there, Ryan Wingo, Gunnar Helm, Matthew Golden. That's kind of your big group right now when it comes to, chunk plays, guys going out to, find receptions on the field. I look at it, in the sense that early downs, first and second, you're going to target Isaiah Bond pretty early on those drives. Third downs, red zone, you're going to find Matthew Golden. If you want to go deep, if you want a big play, Ryan Wingo is going to be on the field at some point, and then you sprinkle in a DeAndre Moore, a wrinkle. Guys aren't defending him. Guys aren't game planning to stop DeAndre Moore. They're not game planning to stop Jonte Cook. So when these guys go into the game and they're able to use their former high 4-star rating and the talent that they have to get open and win routes against guys that aren't necessarily honed in on 0 or 1, because they had to focus on 7 and 2 and 5 and all these guys in the game plan beforehand. Well, that's what makes it so easy. And of course, we saw a tremendous catch by Jonte on that back shoulder throw for March Manning. We saw the catch and run on the 3rd and 19. And of course, DeAndre Moore finding the end zone on that long crossing route on Arch's first play. So when you have that level of ability to get guys onto the field with different skill sets, I don't know how you defend it. And so that's where Steve Sarkisian's at right now, just being able to, dig into his bag of tricks basically and say, yeah, at this time we're going to throw to our, quote unquote 5th string 5-star. And yeah, you're not going to do anything about it. What's also interesting to me is the way in which Amari Niblack's being used right now. And I know we haven't seen a whole lot of him this year. He's got 51 snaps this year. Only 18 of them have been pass plays. So do the quick math right there. That's about 35% of his time on the field has been a quote-unquote pass play with him out in a route. More so than that, he's been used as a run blocker. He's twice now he's been used as a pass blocker. One of those was a penalty, a holding call he committed against Michigan. But if you go back to his time at Alabama last year, 2/3 of his snaps, about 350 of them, were actually him running routes. So a complete, kind of 180 in his usage here at Texas so far. And I think a large part of that is, you have the leading tight end receiver in the SEC right now with Gunnar Helm. You're going to use him and the way that he kind of complements that run-pass balance at the tight end spot already. Of course, he's waited his time in the system. He understands the system. He's the most physical blocker that you have in the system right now. And hey, with him and those kind of plays that he's created after the catch, there's no real need to get that explosive tight end on the field, quote unquote, because, hey, Gunnar Helm's doing it himself. So that's why we haven't seen a whole lot of Amari Niblack right now. I know that at some point Texas is going to trot out the 12 personnel more often, maybe against Georgia, maybe against the Kentucky and Arkansas, whatever the case might be. That's when you'll start to see some of those exotic looks and packages deployed more. There just hasn't been a need so far. So Amari Niblack's time will come, and quite frankly, I expect him back in 2025 with the way that the season's kind of gone on right now. I don't think there's much of a draft stock for him at the moment.
Here we go. Super chat from Arch Horns. Does Ryan Wingo end up being the greatest receiver in Texas history? Yeah, that's a high ceiling question, but look, he's got the ability, Rod, to achieve that.
Man, thank you for the super chat, Arch_Horns. I know it's how I know our phones are listening to us. We were just talking about Ryan Wingo, and then across my timeline comes these Pro Football Focus numbers. So how about this? Yeah, for week 3, Pro Football Focus has Ryan Wingo as the highest graded true freshman in week 3 overall. And then also they have him as the 3rd highest graded receiver overall in week 3 from his performance. And then again, he ended up making, I think they're the SEC, the Pro Football Focus, Pro Football SEC Team of the Week. So they're at PFF Team of the Week for the SEC. I believe he made that as well. Shout out to my man Janae Barron. I think he makes it too. We can talk about that later. But back to Arch Horn's questions, and thank you very much, Matthew, for bringing those up. But I think he can. He's got to pass either statistically what Jordan Shipley and Roy Williams have done. Those are two, I think, are the 2 top dogs. I have Jordan Shipley as the greatest receiver in Texas football history. And yes, I know I played against Roy Williams. I think Roy Williams was physically more gifted, but I've said this before, and I've told Roy this to his face. And I love him. I can't make you the greatest receiver in Texas football history if you didn't score versus Oklahoma.
Yeah,
can't do it. I can't do it.
Can't do it.
I can't do it, and that's the only reason I got. Other than that, Roy is the greatest in my. But Jordan Shipley, man, he was clutch. He was clutch. So I'll give it to Ship in that regard.
And he owned Oklahoma. Kick returns.
Just owned them. Exactly.
Yeah, he owned them. And I think, Rod, I mean, the argument for me from that side is this: that these kids come in so much more advanced than even back then. I mean, we've been doing it long enough. Yeah. Ryan Wingo has come in early. He's already been playing 7-on-7 and honing his craft since he's 14, 15, 16. He's so much more far along than those guys were. If he can stay healthy, I think he would be on a fast track to do just that. He's that talented, and he's already here, and he's already 3 weeks into his career, and he's already having this kind of impact. And he's going to be playing with great quarterbacks too, Rod. I mean, you're playing with an Arch.
Yeah, and he's in the right system, right? This system actually won a wide receiver a Heisman Trophy. This Sark system, so it's the right system if you're a receiver of a high, really high level like he is.
And fortunately for him, and that's just kind of what hurt Xavier Worthy early in his career is who else do you have on the field to take pressure away from him, right? The first year and a half for Xavier Worthy, he was being force fed about 18 targets a game. And that's just simply because there was nobody else on the field that Texas could go to in those situations, right? You didn't see, I don't think you will see a wide receiver that's a freshman right now receive 150 targets the way that Xavier Worthy did his freshman year. And it was all out of necessity. That will never be the case for Ryan Wingo during his time at Texas, because guess who's waiting to get on the field with him, right? That's Jonte Cook next year. That's DeAndre Moore next year. That's Parker Livingstone next year. Oh, and then what? You got 2 5-star freshmen coming in as well. So the cupboard's going to be stacked. There's never going to be a time in which you could look at it from a defensive coordinator's perspective and say, yeah, all right, we'll just double Ryan Wingo and whoever else to throw out there. If they want to beat us, they can beat us, because they will beat you. They are more talented than what you have at defensive back. They are more talented than what you're trotting out at corner. That's the way that Texas has been recruiting at wide receiver. And, of course, because of Sarkisian's and his offense, it's not going to stop anytime soon. And that's what's so exciting about the future. Of course, the quarterback play, we know that's going to be in great hands with Trey Owens and KJ Lacey and Dia Bell. But those wide receivers are going to help the cause tremendously offensively. And it's all because they can help alleviate the pressure and the double teams that defenses want to hone in on with the top number one guy. You know, you can't double Isaiah Bond because then Matthew Golden's wide open, right? You know, it's a great spot to be in if you're Texas.
Yeah, that was the key to A.D. Mitchell, right? You needed A.D. Mitchell to take the pressure off X-Man, and that's when the offense starts to flourish.
Yep.
When you got a guy that can beat man-to-man consistently. No, good points, CJ.
Hey, Rod, I'm going to ask you this on Tuesdays as we get closer to that big stretch with Oklahoma and Georgia. And then we're going to get into some CJ Vogel recruiting nuggets, and then we'll do some more Super Chats. I want you to try to come up with what kind of defense, if you're Kirby Smart or Brett Venables, what is your defensive game plan right now to slow Texas down? Like, what can you do? What would be the best? I mean, there's really no perfect answer, but what is the best course of action? Before we do, though, I want you to tell us about Duck Camp, and you're wearing the cap, or Duck Camp or Hargrove Roofing. You tell me which one. We'll go.
We'll go with Duck Camp. I'm wearing the gear right now. Hey, check it out for yourself. They got the new fall gear, the new fall lineup of new fall selection. Go check that out at duckcamp.com. Duck Camp, producing outdoor goods, premium outdoor goods for the outdoor spirit in all of us. Duck Camp is dedicated to providing the best outdoor goods so you can outdoor good, whether you're an avid hunter or whether you prefer fishing or you're like me and you like to hang out around the campsite. You enjoy the great outdoors and the camaraderie of the campfire. Duck Camp is a brand that understands the culture and the outdoor living and the outdoor lifestyle, the good times and the good friends that come along with living an outdoor lifestyle. And it's a great brand for you folks. So check it out for yourself, duckcamp.com. They have their new fall selection. Check it out before they sell out because it's a very popular brand. They got some really cool stuff over there. Duckcamp.com. Thank you for sponsoring our Tuesday live stream. Okay, how would I defend Texas? I would start situationally. I think it's just too much, trying to, what's the old adage about eating an elephant, right? How do you eat an elephant? Like one bite at a time, right? That's kind of how I feel about trying to attack a Sark offense. I can't wrap my brain around trying to defend every cheat code and every hack he's throwing out there. I can't. So I would go situational, and CJ kind of laid it out, right? Matthew Golden is the guy I'm taking away in the red zone. Early on in the game, the catalyst for your passing game seems to be Isaiah Bond. So I'm going to take him away early. Third down, I gotta kind of get a feel for, who he's looking at. But Gunnar Helm strikes me as a good third down guy to take away. Matthew Golden maybe another kind of good third down guy to take away. And I'm with CJ about Ryan Wingo. I would just, if he's on the field, we would have like a special identifier. Like, hey, that dude's on the field. Let's just watch out for him. All right, you might need to put a safety over the top, roll some things. Because I would not let Ryan Wingo be. The guy's averaging 31 yards a touch. It's like when Texas played Alabama for in 2009 for the national title. And then I remember Nick Saban was talking about DJ Monroe. He didn't even know his name. He just said his number. He's like, I got to watch out for that dude. He just said his number. He's just like, because he's fast. The guy's real fast, and we got to make sure we keep up with that guy, man. He could beat us on one damn play. That's Ryan Wingo. So I would go situational, but I would throw a ton. And now if it's Quinn out there, different game plan than Arch, but I'd throw a ton of different looks at him. You got to force Quinn to have to process pre-snap and post-snap. So my disguise would be a big part of my game plan. I got to look different pre-snap than I do post-snap. If you don't, man, Quinn will eat you alive. You got to force Quinn to hold on to the ball extra second longer. And I know Michigan tried to apply pressure and it didn't work very well. But I would bring some heat. I'd bring some heat, but like I said, right now, there's not much you can do but just kind of throw blank at the wall and see if it sticks. There's nothing I've seen that has shown a consistent, successful counter to what they're doing right now. The 3 high was really good against Sark's offense, so I would throw some 3 high out there. But he had a great antidote for that last season. So that's not necessarily going to work as well as it has in the past against the Sark offense. And Quinn has seen it a number of times. But I would throw out a lot of different looks. That I would probably be as multiple as Johnny Nansen against the Sark offense. I would throw everything at him.
Yeah.
Because if Sark, that's why Sark's first drive, right? You talked about this, CJ. Sometimes the Texas doesn't score on like the first drive, or maybe sometimes even the second drive gets started. But then once Sark figures out, once he troubleshoots the defense a little bit, and then he gets going. Then they score, and then the run kind of starts with complementary football. That's because Sark is troubleshooting early, trying to figure out what works and what the rules are of your defense and how the rules that bind the structural integrity of your defense so he can violate them. That's all he's trying to do with the movement and the shifts and the formations and all the eye candy early on. He's just trying to figure out what the rules of your defense are. And once he does, that's when he gets the blowout and the really high scoring numbers and the really prolific productivity. So that ultimately for Sark, I wouldn't let him figure me out. You got to be unorthodox versus Sark, man. You have to be, and you got to break tendency. You can't give him everything he's seen on film. Remember, even last year, he admitted that gives him problems. He's like, hey, if they show me something different during the game that I saw on film, then I'm not prepared for it. That forces Sark to have to, play call on the fly. He's got to kind of freestyle things, and it takes him a little bit of a while to adjust. So he's admitted that's a weakness for him. So you better break tendency, and you better do it early.
Yeah, that's great stuff, Brad. CJ, your thoughts to that? I mean, I love it situationally. You got to try to pick what their best pitch is in a big spot and attack that. And then, just for a team like Georgia, I'm thinking about, I hope that you've got athletes that can match the athletes at some level. There aren't many teams that can, and hope you can win some one-on-one battles.
Yeah, and that's, I would say, is kind of the cautionary tale right now as Texas enters the SEC. And I know that they have a favorable schedule, but you watch that Georgia-Kentucky game, and Kentucky has athletes, right? And I think whenever you play road games, and Texas will play only 3 this year, it's Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. It's a different environment, right? And I think that's, again, fortunately for this schedule in 2024, Texas gets to play most of their big games at home. Texas gets to only go on the road for 3 true road games, and that's going to mean something towards the end of the season. Now, could it maybe work against them if they make a SEC championship game or college football playoff? It could, but at the same time, at the very worst, I would assume it's going to be a 50-50 split with the way that Texas faithful travel to these games. But at the same time, I mean, you're going to see this level of athlete increase as the season progresses and Texas plays some of these kind of look over SEC games. Right now, Florida, a look over game. Kentucky, a look over game. Arkansas, to an extent, I know it's, there's some bad blood there. They're not a great program right now, but they got guys. We've talked about, the Reese's Senior Bowl and Shrine Bowl numbers of guys that they have on their watch list. I think they're up to 18 guys on the Arkansas watch list that NFL scouts are looking at right now to get onto their Senior Bowl evaluation list for the draft. So there's a different level right now. And I think that Georgia game against Kentucky this weekend, which Georgia only won 13-12, right, is a great cautionary tale of you've got good athletes, but good athletes are also going to be on the other side of the ball. Fortunately for Texas, without their starting quarterback, you won't be seeing a lot of good athletes this weekend or next weekend. And that's really, kind of that. I say if there was ever a time for Quinn to get hurt, it's right now, because you have the luxury via your schedule to go out there, continue to play your level of football, play with confidence, beat some teams, and not necessarily need to play an injured Quinn Ewers in the process. So that's the overall, kind of synopsis that I have right now. But moving forward, there are going to be guys that will be able to match up with the Texas speed, maybe not everywhere across the field, but, it can happen. You never know when a surprise might happen, and more so on the road is where I'm looking. So Fayetteville, College Station, those are the 2.
Okay. Hey, Rod, as we watch this offense continue to evolve for Texas, and obviously we'll talk more defense in coming episodes, but does it remind you more of the Sark offense in 2020 or the LSU offense 2019? The Joe Burrow-led swag-filled offense. I mean, that Chase and Jefferson, but they were unstoppable at some level, or Sark's offense where you had the 4 great receivers and Mac Jones.
It's probably just closer to LSU's offense. Now, I still don't know if you have the wide receiver, like the top end talent that, it's Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. That's you're talking guys were considered top 5, 10 receivers best in the league right now. And that Alabama team, you had 4 at that time in 2020 with two first-round wide receivers, part of that group as well. So I'm not sure you have the top end. I think Bond may be a top end guy, but you do have NFL talent, no question. I think it may be closer if you're just looking at how the personnel lines up, because I don't remember a dominant rusher. I remember Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the running back for LSU. And I'm sure he was really prolific, but he's kind of like a Jaden Blue to me, more so than what Bama had in the backfield.
Yeah,
right?
It was Najee Harris.
Right. So
Sark.
To me, it feels like, because that's how he wants to use Blue. But before, obviously, Blue wasn't available in the last game versus UTSA, but he's had 12 targets, I believe, in the first 2 games of the season. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire was used a lot like that by Joe Brady on the perimeter. So I think if I'm going to pick one, I would say maybe that's it. Maybe I'll go with the LSU model.
Sark had Najee Harris, and then they had, Davante Smith. They won the Heisman. They had Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, and Jalen Waddle. And then Jalen Waddle got hurt. Hurt. That's pretty good. Waddle got hurt that year, and then, but man, they were so loaded.
Yeah, I don't know if it's any of them are really quite like it. Just because I think this offense is unique in its own way. I do think ultimately Sark's gonna have to lean on the pass, man. This is, even with Arch, I wonder what that early game, the first half pass rate is what you need to watch. Is he gonna throw it? And if he throws it, are we just talking about extensions of the running game to get Arch more comfortable within the offense early on in the game to get him in the rhythm? UT Boy had a super chat here, just since I know we're talking wide receivers. He says, "Who is in the circle, Roger? The circle of trust." Thank you, UT Boy, for the super chat. Appreciate it. Man, that circle is wider than it's ever been. I will admit, I didn't expect it to. I knew it was going to be an expanded circle of trust, but there's no doubt Bond and Golden are firmly in the circle. They're like in the middle of that thing. I think I'd have Ryan Wingo in there. It's hard to deny the prodigy and what he's done. He's in the circle. Jonte Cook, you can argue with 2 touchdowns now that he is now put himself in the circle. DeAndre Moore is in the circle just because they continue. He's a starter for you. So he's in the circle. I mean, the only guy that's really, I don't know, firmly in the circle, in my opinion, is probably Silas Bowden. I think he's working his way in. I think Sark really wants him to be in the circle, but I don't know if it's right now. I wouldn't say he's in there. He's guaranteed to be in the circle right now. I think it's going to be by mid-season, but I don't know if he is right now.
That's been a bit of a surprise too, because again, the rave reviews that we have heard about Silas Bolden dating back to when he first got to campus, I'm not saying that it's been a disappointment, because you still went for 4 for 29, 4 for 30. I thought maybe you'd see him maybe as like a second running back at times, lined up in the backfield, but kind of shown more as a wide receiver. I thought he would be that go-to option, that motion guy pre-snap. So maybe I was just a little over my head with Silas Bolden before the season. And hey, if that's the case and you have a 800-yard guy as your 5th option right now, again, good luck stopping that offense. But right now, that circle of trust or whatever that we're seeing at the wide receiver spot, feel really good about 5 guys, and you could add Bolden to that. I feel really good about this group of wide receivers. And again, how do you stop it? I don't think you can.
Yeah, and maybe that's it to the LSU Alabama comp. It's its own unicorn, and they've got 6 really good wide receivers that you have to deal with in different packages and formations. And as Rod said, the running backs can act like receivers too. I mean, the targets to the running back. I don't know that even the Alabama or Clyde Edwards-Helaire was such a great third down receiver for Joe Burrow, kind of an outlet guy when they needed to move the chains. But Jaden Blue can be a difference maker from the outside on those swing routes. And obviously what we're seeing from Trey Wisner as a slasher, just a team with a ton of weapons, and you got to try to deal with all of them. And I think you kind of hinted at it, CJ, that the Amari Niblack, they haven't even sprung his athleticism on people yet, as Gunnar Helm has been featured. I still think he's playing a lot. There's going to be some things for him because he's a matchup problem, even against top-end defenses. Rod, tell about Hargrove Roofing, and then we're going to talk to CJ about some recruiting and some nuggets that have come in from Jerry and the recruiting side. But what do we say about Hargrove Roofing and our appreciation to them?
Yeah, very obviously grateful for Hargrove Roofing for sponsoring our Tuesday night live stream. Folks, you can go check out Hargrove Roofing at hargroveroofing.com, or you can give them a call, 512-645-3202, if you have any concerns about your roof. And right now, you can get a free roof inspection, my friends, over at Hargrove Roofing. So if you have any issues with your roof right now and you need a brand that is reliable, a brand that you can trust, that would be Hargrove Roofing. And also, they are a burnt orange, a pro burnt orange organization. So you won't find a company that's rooting harder for the Longhorns than Hargrove Roofing, with partners like lifetime Longhorn Bert Arbin, also lifetime Longhorn Stevie Lee, which joins the winning drive on Mondays. They are the most pro burnt orange roofing company out there. So if you are looking to represent the brand and also looking to do right by your roof, check out our friends over at Hargrove Roofing. Call them today for a free roof inspection. That's Hargrove Roofing. Know who's on your roof.
Yeah, so far, 8 different Longhorns have recorded at least 1 receiving touchdown so far. Isaiah Bond leads the way with 3, Matthew Golden 3, Jonte Cook 2. They both came last week. Wingo, Helm, Blue, Moore, and Bolden all have found the end zone on receiving scores through 3 games. That's a big number for sure. CJ, some recruiting developments or things to keep an eye on?
Yeah, this week will be a bit of a smaller get-together on campus as Texas hosts ULM. A few names of note that will be on campus for the game on Saturday night. How about some commitments, right? You know, Jonah Williams making his return to campus since his commitment. Chris Stewart, the 2026 Shadow Creek wide receiver, he will be on campus. Our Jerry Hamilton was actually out to see Chris Stewart in action earlier this afternoon for his practice. And then a couple 2026 uncommitted prospects. Top of the Texas recruiting board right now. Temple edge rusher Jamarian Carlton will be on campus. Of course, he received his offer June 1st for the elite camp. Braylon Edwards, the Duncanville defensive back. Jamarian Vincent out of Waco Connolly, a really talented 6'2" safety, I believe, at the next level. He is making his return to campus. He's a guy that mentioned Texas is very high on his list following the Pool Bash visit in late July. And then one guy to keep a really close eye on is Jalen Lott. And why is that significant? Because we believe he'll actually be making a return visit very soon to Texas later on this year. At some point, he's, of course, the son of former Texas Hall of Honor recipient James Lott, who jumped 7'3" and 3/4. So pretty good genes right there. And, of course, he's a heck of a football player. I believe he's as good a wide receiver as he is cornerback, which is rare whenever you kind of evaluate guys that can move like him. Not the biggest, but as a true freshman at Lovejoy, he was going up against Kyle Parker, Jackson Lavender, Parker Livingstone, and Dalen McCutcheon. I would say that's a pretty good idea of the level that he can go play at the cornerback spot. And, of course, at wide receiver now at Panther Creek, he's putting up some good numbers. So he'll be on campus as well. And, we're of course, monitoring some out-of-state guys coming in for the Mississippi State game 2 weeks from now. So pretty good visitors lists. I know it's not going to be, too mind-shattering. Of course, you're going to look at that Georgia list with, maybe a magnifying glass by the end of it to see just how many names and how long that goes. But right now, solid list of guys coming in with some top prospects for 2026.
Hey, CJ, I saw where Lance Jackson, the pass rusher, it's one service, got him a 5-star on. He's obviously having a great senior year.
Yeah, how about that, right? And we got to talk to Lance not too long ago on Texas Football Show. 6'5.5", 6'6", 275 pounds. Said he wants to get down to about 265, 260. He actually told us he was kind of upset at how the season started for him, and that's because he only had 3 sacks through 2 games. That should give you an idea of the level of talent that he sees himself at as well. Heck of a football player and heck of an athlete, right? I mentioned 6'6", 270. To move the way that he does, he runs a 4.6 laser 40. He can throw 95 on the mound. And just to watch the way that he gets off the football, but also changes direction while in pursuit, very impressive. You don't see that too often. Texas has a great edge room right now. We've talked about that all offseason. And we've seen the impact Colin Simmons has had. A guy like Lance Jackson and Smith Orogbo are certainly going to elevate this room when they step foot on campus. And, hey, Texas might not be done in that edge room for 2025.
Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot right there. Lance Jackson. He's a pretty good athlete, kind of like Jonah Williams, baseball, football. kind of makes you angry. God dang, what isn't he good at? This guy's probably handsome and can sing, and he's like all the dads like him too. Wants the daughters to go out with him. Pretty good. Matthew's got some super chats, and we appreciate those. Let's run through them. John, thank you so much. Very off topic. I want to say congrats to FSU on becoming the first team to hit their under on win total this year. Well done, guys. Yeah. Well, dang, that's a rough 180 from 13-0 / 13-1 to now. And Jerry Hamilton said it on our live watch in-game watch, our watch along. He quoted the Nick Saban quote from the first game day where he said, this transfer portal, if you put your money into the wrong guys, you're out of luck, right? You're shit out of luck if you take the wrong guys. DJ Uiagalelei was just not a good go at quarterback, and some other misses. And they remind me a little bit, guys, of TCU after they played for the national championship, and all their best players were off to the NFL, from Max Duggan and Kendre Miller and Quentin Johnson. I mean, just Steve Avila on offensive line, just across the board, best defensive players too. It's hard to replace all those difference makers in 1 year, and those difference makers, Rod, are kind of why you are able to go undefeated and win those close games. When you don't have them and you don't replace them, it's a tough go.
I'm with you, and it's these days you could just reload with the portal again, but then you take the same chance, right? That could all blow up in your face because you have so many players on your team that you weren't able to cultivate the culture with. So many guys who you can't necessarily vet their football character all the way through because you only got that one season. When you're bringing in guys, this is why Sark likes to supplement via the portal. He doesn't want to build via the portal. He wants to supplement because he believes that his culture, which is something that is now passed down, if you will, from class to class, all right, from different players, that it's strong enough that when he brings in guys of high football character, because they do their own vetting, that they'll automatically be kind of immersed in this culture, and then he won't have to work as hard to instill that in those players, right? The players on themselves, they police themselves, regulated themselves, but they are also now cultivating and passing on the culture, all right, within the program itself. You don't really get that dynamic when you're built heavily through the transfer portal. You almost just got to pray that it works out, or you better be a great evaluator of people and personalities. If that's the case, you better be able to read people really well. Some coaches can just read people really well, but we haven't seen a lot of examples. What's the best example of somebody who's built through the portal and hadn't been around that long? So you're not going to have many examples and been able to win back-to-back years inconsistently.
Yeah, it's kind of a flash. I mean, Michigan State did it for the 1 year, and then it fell back off. And Florida State, 1 year, it fell back off. I mean, I think you're right about that, and that's where the programs like Texas, they can do both and recruit at a high level from the high school ranks and develop that talent, but kind of just plug holes and plug needs and make sure you build depth at key places. That's going to be the more successful strategy with that. But obviously, Mike Norvell having a rough go. This says hit the love button for OTF.
Nice.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that, brother.
What does it they do? There you go. I love
I like that.
There you go. Boom. There you go. Yeah.
Right. Oh, this is not a good. With ULM running the ball over 70% of the time, what are the defensive fronts we're going to see this week? Good one. Thank you, Kenneth.
That is good. I think honestly you'll see a lot of what you saw versus Michigan. I think you'll see some of those three D tackle packages where they have 3 D tackles on the field. Hell, we saw that in short yardage versus UTSA. I love when Johnny Manson, when you see a matchup specific package, exotic look of some kind, for Johnny Nancy, he almost puts it in his catalog after that. I see why his defense was so multiple at Arizona, because basically he comes up with a unique, exotic kind of concept to match up and counter an opponent week to week. And then he just puts it in his catalog. And then now it's part of his repertoire. And like the NASCAR dime that they broke out versus Colorado State, I was like, that's cool. Versus an air raid team, you got a dime package, 60 Bs, NASCAR package. So you're 3 edges on the field, and you're running an inverted Tampa 2 in coverage. Very creative, love it. And hell, I've seen it. I saw it in the NASCAR dime versus Michigan, saw it versus UTSA. That's a staple now. They love it on 3rd and long, NASCAR dime. Versus Michigan, we saw that 3D tackle package. And then I saw it again on short yards versus UTSA. when he uses something, they're going to use it a lot. Versus UTSA, I think the wrinkle that I saw, and we saw this already, but I had never seen them play so much 3 high on third down. I mean, I thought I saw it out of the dime package that they were using it. Now they used it out of nickel too, and I think Texas may be starting to use some of that 3 high as part of kind of their base coverages, or at least their base presentations, I should say. Still, the coverage may same, but their presentation, you can't beat them, join them. And I think that's a Sark move. I think Sark and PK have been studying it and the benefits of it, because Sark had to study it to try to find an antidote to it, because everybody kept throwing it at him as a great counter for his offense. And I think Sark was figuring, you know what, it's actually worked so well against us, I might as well use it defensively, and we have the versatility to do it. I think Johnny Nansen also loves exotic looks like that. So expect to see the 3 high a little bit more. They got the versatile DBs to do it. But to your point, yes, you're going to see bare front. You're going to see that penny front they use with the 5-1 front. You'll see in that 3D tackle package, you'll see some more looks. And I wouldn't doubt Johnny Nansen broke out something else versus ULM.
All right, let me tell you about our friends at the Autograph app. This is our final partner tonight, bringing you the Tuesday live stream on Texas football. Feed your fandom. That's what it's all about with the Autograph app. You know, being a fan of the number 1 team in the country can be a full-time job. You got to cut through a lot of clutter for sure, but that's what the Autograph app does. It does all the heavy lifting for you, from tickets that you're going to need for the big matchups, breaking news that comes through. The Autograph app has curated content for fans of all things Texas Longhorns. All the podcasts, all the articles, the game predictions you could ever want, including, of course, the On Texas Football shows. The new replay feature gets you get the day's news without the noise and clutter of all the other news you don't want. All you need to do is download it to your phone, and you use code ONTEXAS. That's ONTEXAS to download the free app on Google Play or the Apple App Store today. That'd be the On Texas. Feed your fandom with the Autograph app. It just locks everything in. It's like Reader's Digest, all things Texas all the time, including On Texas football. And what else do you need right now with the number 1 team in the country and a fun team to talk about and cover as we move forward? Guys, be a fun Wednesday. Coffee and football tomorrow morning with the crew there. And we'll get into that Tennessee-Oklahoma game a little bit, the big games of the weekend. Only a couple of big games this weekend. That'd be big. And obviously Michigan-USC. Pretty big game, the first Big Ten game for the USC Trojans ever. Tennessee's that Josh Heupel Bowl. By the way, Brett Venables, guys, told a funny story today. He's talking about when he was on the staff and they were recruiting Josh Heupel. The coaches, and you're kind of unanimous, they wanted Akili Smith. They're trying to bring remember him, Akili Smith?
Yeah.
In as a transfer. And it was Mike Leach who said, no, I want this Heupel. He's this skinny kid that didn't look the part, according to Brett Venables. And we all were like, man, have you seen Achilles out here? This guy's big. He can throw. And he said, no, this is our guy to run my offense. And obviously he won a national championship there.
Wow.
Finished for a Heisman finalist, and rest is history. That'll be a fun game. I don't feel very good for Oklahoma in that game. I mean, watched Tennessee in that defensive line a couple times. And obviously Nico's a real good quarterback. That offensive line at Oklahoma's going to have a hard time against Tennessee on Saturday.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you're going to see Josh Heupel celebrating a little bit more in Norman this weekend. I don't know how Oklahoma scores points. I know they might be getting some wide receivers back. That offensive line is still very bad. They still don't have a great cohesive connection with Jackson Arnold and the wide receivers. And maybe that changes with some of those guys coming back. But Deion Burks really is the only guy that you've seen consistently perform in this offense for Oklahoma. Now, defensively, I think that's where they could pose some issues. Of course, you're going against a young quarterback. You'll be at home. I mentioned this on, I believe, the Sunday show. I don't know, Rod, and maybe you have a better eye for this defensively. I don't know if there's a player in the country that's better at being around the football to create takeaways than Billy Bowman. I just don't know. He had 6 picks last year. He had another one last week against Tulane. Whatever it is about Billy Bowman, he's in the right place at the right time, and he gets his hands on the football. He's a hell of a football player, but they're going to need several turnovers of Nico Maliva. Ooh, man, we're going to have to work on that one.
Yeah,
luckily, Texas doesn't have to play Tennessee this year, but no, that's going to have to be their route for success, is taking the football away from Tennessee and hoping and praying and just flat out begging Jackson Arnold not to turn the ball over, because that's seemingly what he does pretty well. unfortunately for Oklahoma.
That's his unique ability, the turnover.
Yeah.
All right, guys, looking forward to it. It'll be a fun week, and obviously then the bye week coming. But we'll be back next Tuesday with all kinds of conversation. Obviously, the On Texas channel rolls on. And remember the in-game watch. I'll be hosting that with Rod will join for a quarter, Bobby Burton, Coach Bob Shipley. That's a lot of fun with Coach, watching a game with him who's seen so much football in his life. And Jerry and Bobby, of course, that's coming up on Saturday, 7 o'clock kick. We'll jump on about 5 minutes till and take you all the way through to the post-game show for our game day coverage of Texas football. Looking forward to it one more time. Thank you to Matthew. Thanks to all the super chats. Thanks to our partners tonight. Thanks to you guys. That was fun.